Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Explore and Engage with Anam. The Canadian people want their government to have conversations with the Trump administration. The Canadian people want Prime Minister Mark Carney to talk to President Donald J. Trump. The Canadian people want trade talks and negotiations with the United States of America. You know why? Because the Canadian economy is facing a big crisis. The Canadian consumers are suffering. The Canadian businesses are struggling as tariffs imposed by the United States have an impact on the economy of Canada. And so, the Canadian people want to see their leadership do something. The Canadian people want to see some leadership from Mark Carney. But sadly, that is missing. There is no leadership coming from the Canadian administration. Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, he can do speeches. He can stand in front of a podium and speak. He can stand in front of the cameras and speak. Mark Carney can say things that make him look tough. But in terms of actual leadership, there's a big vacuum. And the Canadian people realize that there's no leadership right now. And that's why the Canadian people are worried about their economic future. And here's what Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said recently. He said that talks with President Trump will not happen, and I quote, until we get the respect we deserve as a sovereign nation. So that's his quote. He made it very clear that talks with President Trump will not happen until, his words, until we get the respect we deserve as a sovereign nation. Those are the words coming from Mark Carney. So he wants respect. I don't think anyone has disrespected him. No one has shown any kind of disrespect towards Mark Carney. In fact, Mark Carney has disrespected our country, the United States of America. Mark Carney disrespected the United States during his acceptance speech not too long ago, when he became the PM. Mark Carney said, and I'm giving you his quote, he said, "These are dark days brought on by a country we can no longer trust." Those are Mark Carney's words. What does he mean? He's referring to the United States. He mentioned dark days and he blamed the United States of America for these so-called dark days. Listen, there are no dark days. Here in the United States, we are experiencing the start of a new golden age. In the United States, we are not experiencing dark days. We are experiencing the start of a new golden age. And in Canada, if there are dark days in Canada, that's not our fault. It's the failure of the Liberal Party in Canada. If there are dark days in Canada, it's the failure of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Well, now he's former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And it's the failure of the Canadian administration. If there are dark days in Canada, it's because of their economic policies. Mark Carney said that he will root for the United States, but he won't support Donald Trump. That is a very strange thing to say, in my opinion. Mark Carney said that he will root for the United States, but he will not support Donald Trump. Does Mark Carney realize that the American people overwhelmingly voted for Donald J. Trump? The American people elected Donald J. Trump by both Electoral College votes and popular vote. Donald J. Trump is the leader of the United States of America. So when Mark Carney, when he speaks against Donald J. Trump, he is speaking against the United States of America. Because we, the people, elected Donald Trump. Here's what I can tell you about Prime Minister Mark Carney. His words and his tone will result in more economic pain and financial suffering in Canada. The fact that Mark Carney disrespects the US, the fact that he disrespects our country, the United States of America, that is not going to help his administration. Mark Carney is demanding respect. Respect cannot be demanded. Respect has to be earned. He has to earn people's respect. And we never disrespected Canada. I want to be very, very clear. We, the American people, we did not show any kind of disrespect to Canada. We just asked for fairness. Fairness in trade. And we also asked for cooperation in securing the border. But Canada is not being a good neighbor. And Canada has been unfair in terms of trade. And so we have a leader, President Donald J. Trump, who wants to ensure that the United States of America is treated fairly. It is in Canada's best interest. It is in Canada's best interest to have a dialogue with the Trump administration. Mark Carney, representing Canada, must engage in conversations with the Trump administration. One would think that Prime Minister Mark Carney, being an economist and someone who served as the governor of the Bank of Canada and the governor of the Bank of England, would have the wisdom to understand that having a talk with President Trump is essential for Canada's economic future. But Mark Carney is being too emotional. He's abandoning logic and reason, and he is being adamant that he is not going to talk with President Trump until he receives respect. Once again, America did not disrespect Canada, but Prime Minister Mark Carney disrespected America. If Carney doesn't want to talk, that's his decision. That's his decision. It is not a decision that will benefit the Canadian economy. So the people of Canada must realize that they do not have a wise prime minister right now. If Prime Minister Carney thinks that acting tough will help his economy, then he's wrong. And when President Trump proposes to make Canada the 51st state, if you think about it, it's an unbelievably good offer for Canada to become a part of the greatest country in the world. I'm sure that there are people in Canada who are extremely happy hearing about this possibility. There are people in Canada who would love to be citizens of the United States. And the fact that this offer exists, that's a lot of respect being shown towards Canada. For President Donald Trump to propose making Canada the 51st American state, that's a lot of respect being shown towards Canada. There are so many people from all over the world who leave their countries of origin to come to the United States. They want to be in the United States. They dream of US citizenship. They want to live and work in the United States. They want to be a part of the United States. And here's Canada getting an offer from President Trump to become the 51st state. That's great honor for Canada. That's a great opportunity for Canada to be a part of the greatest country in the world, which is the United States of America. But Prime Minister Mark Carney wants to challenge the US instead of engaging in dialogue. If dialogue and cooperation do not take place, then tariffs will continue. The Bank of Canada has admitted that US tariffs will hurt key Canadian industries. The Bank of Canada has also admitted that the uncertainty is taking a toll. So even if President Trump delays implementing some tariffs, the uncertainty is going to adversely impact the Canadian economy. So how long can the Canadian economy withstand the impacts of the US tariffs? That is something to think about. The reality is that Canada will not win a tariff war against the United States. The US economy is far more powerful, and some people may not like the fact that I'm saying this. I know there are Canadians who listen to my podcast, and I've always said that the people of Canada and the people of the United States, we are friends, we are neighbors, and that is still very true. And that is why I'm saying that Mark Carney's words and his tone and his attitude are not helping the people of Canada, are not helping the Canadian economy. If Prime Minister Carney chooses to challenge the United States rather than engaging in talks with the Trump administration, then the tariffs will continue. I think Prime Minister Carney has to keep something in mind. The American people are united. We are united in our support for President Donald J. Trump. There are forces that are trying to divide the people of America. I've talked about political activists on the left who are trying to spread lies, who are engaging in fear-mongering to try to divide the American people. But we are united in our support for President Donald J. Trump, and the American people support President Trump's actions in terms of international relations. And this is the reality. Canada will not win a tariff war against the United States. That is the reality. That is the truth. Tariffs will hurt Canadian businesses, and many Canadian households will also be worried regarding the economy, and that will have an impact on consumer behavior. So what is in Canada's best interest? Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, should treat the United States and President Donald J. Trump with respect. And Mark Carney should start talks with the Trump administration. We want a great relationship with Canada. We want fair trade with Canada. We want Canada's cooperation to secure the northern border of the United States. And it's all possible. It's possible to achieve all of this through dialogue, through discussion, through conversation, and through cooperation. Right now, the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is simply watching his country suffer. Prime Minister Carney must take reasonable and logical action to have fruitful dialogue with President Trump. That would be a great move for Canada's economic future. My friends, share with me your thoughts. I want to hear from you. Send me your comments. You can go to my website, tossifanam.net, and you can send me a message through my website. If you want to connect with me on social media, you can do so. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, and also on Truth Social. And if you want to email me, my email address is tossif@tossifanam.net. My friends, I want to hear from you. Share with me your thoughts. Send me a message. Send me an email. connect with me on social media, and share with me your opinions. Thank you once again for continuing to listen to my podcast, and I hope to be back again soon with a new episode of Explore and Engage with Anam.